Imagine this. You're sitting quietly on your own land, ready for nothing more than a peaceful day of fishing. The water is calm, the sky is wide, and the only sound is the creak of your small boat as it drifts away from shore. Then suddenly, sirens, red and blue lights bounce off the water. Deputies appear at the bank, and your neighbors, people who've lived beside you for years, are pointing, whispering, even recording as if you were a criminal caught in the act. Now pause for a second. What would you do if the very people living next to you called the cops on you? For floating a boat in your own lake? Well, a man named Daniel Harlow didn't just answer that question. He turned the tables in a way no one expected. And by the end of his story, an entire neighborhood would be left stunned. Daniel Harlow was 47 years old, a rancher in northern Texas. He wasn't flashy, didn't drive a shiny truck, and didn't brag about his money. What he had? What he was proud of was his land. Acres of rolling pasture, oak trees leaning toward the water, and most important of all, a quiet lake tucked deep into his property. That lake wasn't a resort. It wasn't for tourists. It was his escape. A place where Daniel could sit with a fishing rod in hand and lose track of the hours. One bright morning, Daniel lowered his old flat-bottom boat into the lake. The mud scraped beneath it as he pushed away from shore. The ranch grew smaller behind him while the water reflected a perfect Texas sky. He leaned back, ready to disappear into silence. But the silence didn't last. Sirens. At first he thought they were far away, maybe on the highway, but they grew louder, sharper. He turned, and there on the far side of the lake by the subdivision's Marina stood two sheriff's deputies. And behind them, neighbors, dozens of them. Phones raised, whispering, watching. And in the center of it all stood Margaret Cole, the president of the subdivision's HOA, clipboard in hand, chin raised like she was the law herself. The deputies cupped their hands. "Sir, we're going to need you to come ashore." Daniel's stomach sank. He gripped the oars. "This is my lake," he shouted back. His voice carried, firm but steady. Margaret stepped forward. "That water belongs to the subdivision. You can't just use it like you own the place." The words hit him like a slap. Reluctantly, Daniel rowed back toward shore. Gravel crunched beneath the deputies' boots as they closed in. One asked politely for his ID. The crowd leaned in, whispering, recording every second. Daniel handed over his license, lifting his chin. "My ranch line runs through this lake. It's on my deed. I have the paperwork." The deputy looked at Margaret. She stiffened but said nothing. After a long pause, the deputy handed Daniel's ID back. "Sir, if you've got the deed, you're within your rights." The law was clear. But the humiliation? That stuck. The neighbors still muttered. The camera still rolled. And Daniel knew deep down this wasn't over. That night he barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the lights flashing on the water. Every time he tried to relax, he heard the whispers. His wife Clara tried to reassure him. "They embarrassed themselves, not you," she said gently. But Daniel shook his head. "People won't see the deed. They'll see the video. They'll see me standing there like I needed permission to be on my own land." And he was right. Within days, the clip spread on Facebook. Captioned, "Local man argues with HOA over restricted lake use." Comments poured in. Some defended him, but others sided with Margaret. Rules are rules. Maybe he doesn't really own it. The humiliation grew heavier. A week later, Daniel drove into town for feed. At the hardware store, an older neighbor, Frank Yates, stopped him. "Daniel," he said, tugging at his fishing hat, "I heard about what happened at the lake." Daniel gritted his teeth. "I'm sure everyone did." Frank gave a slow nod. "Margaret runs that HOA like a kingdom. Don't take it personal. Not everyone agrees with her." Daniel studied him. For the first time, he realized maybe, just maybe, not every neighbor saw him as an outsider. Still, the damage was done. And when he later presented his deed at the sheriff's office to officially close the case, the deputy confirmed it. "You're in the clear, Mr. Harlow." But Daniel didn't smile. "Inconvenience is when a package shows up late," he said bitterly. This was humiliation. This was harassment. And as he drove home, a new kind of anger built inside him, not wild, not reckless, but sharp and deliberate. Weeks passed. Daniel avoided the lake, but he couldn't avoid the whispers. At church, at the grocery store, even at the feed store. Everyone seemed to know about the man who fought the HOA. One night, Clara found him staring at the lake. "They think they can erase me," he said quietly. "So what will you do?" she asked. Daniel's answer was firm. "Something they won't forget." And then, by chance, he overheard a conversation at the feed store. Two men talking about the subdivision Marina. "You hear the docks are falling apart again?" "Yeah, HOA doesn't even own it. Just leases it from some guy in Gainesville." Daniel froze. Wait, the HOA didn't own the marina? The very thing they acted like they controlled, their so-called crown jewel, wasn't even theirs. That night, Daniel started digging. At the county clerk's office, he pulled records. Sure enough, the marina was owned by an older man named Harold Lockwood, and the taxes had been late. Suddenly, a plan formed in Daniel's mind. If Harold wanted to sell, Daniel could buy it. And if Daniel owned the marina, then the HOA, Margaret Cole herself, wouldn't just lose their leverage. They'd have to answer to him. With the help of his friend Victor, a local real estate agent, Daniel arranged a meeting. Harold Lockwood was in his 70s, tired and looking to offload the marina. The docks were rotting, the insurance expensive. Developers had sniffed around but offered little. But when Daniel sat across from Harold, he made his case simple. "I don't want to tear it down. I want to keep it running, and I want the respect that comes with it." Harold studied him for a long moment, then finally leaned back with a faint smile. "You come up with the financing in 30 days. It's yours." And right there, a handshake sealed it. Daniel walked away that day not just with hope, but with power. The HOA had humiliated him. They had called the law on him. They had painted him as an intruder. But soon, the very marina they depended on, their lifeline to the water, would belong to the man they tried to push out. And when that day came, Margaret Cole and her clipboard would have no choice but to face the truth. Because Daniel Harlow wasn't just the rancher next door anymore. He was the man who bought their world right out from under them.